Dementia. The Whole of Reality. By Michael Cage. Introduction. We owe a great deal of our well-being to science and technology. The world of science, several centuries in the making, has definitely contributed many blessings to our world. It has helped us to stay warm, to be healthy, comfortable, entertained, and there are a host of other wonderful things that could be said about science. From the scientific field of quantum physics alone, humanity has been given an enormous understanding on how our physical universe works. Take the miracle of vision for an example. For a very long time no one understood how the miracle of vision worked. In the distant past we thought the eyes emitted something that illuminated the objects we saw. It was Leonardo da Vinci who showed that the rays of emanation was not coming from our eyes, but were instead coming from the actual objects, and then entering into our eyes. Although this was a huge step forward, Leonardo still could not explain what the emanation was. This was because he had little understanding of what light was, and how light worked. We began to grasp a great understanding on how light works in 1905 with Albert Einstein's explanation of the photoelectric effect, where he showed the world light was made of individual particles, photons. We know now that light behaves like a particle and a wave with crests and troughs. We know now, light bounces off, and emits from objects in our vicinity, and then enters the optical nerves in our eyes. And from this we create a constant visual map of our surroundings. In like manner, sound waves that reach our ears, along with our other senses, help us to draw a mental portrait of what is going on in the physical world around us. Information via our five senses. But the information received via our five senses, sight, touch, hearing, tasting, and smelling, can only really tell us about exterior reality, that is the physical world of our environment. Our picture of the world, via our five senses, is constructed out of a multitude of impressions that consist entirely of the outsides of things. Thus, the interior reality of what it is actually like to be a thing other than ourselves, for example another human being, or even an animal or object, can never be known directly via our five senses. Even when we use sophisticated measuring devices, or ultra-powerful microscopes, we cannot escape our fixation of looking at the outside of things, how they appear as objects in a physical world. It is not possible for today's mainstream science to probe the phenomenology of the inner world of ourselves and our physical universe. It is not in the nature of today's mainstream sciences to do such. The removal of consciousness. During what is termed in history as the Enlightenment era, a philosophical movement which dominated the world of ideas in Europe in the 18th century, there was a social movement to remove religion and superstitions from philosophical thinking and scientific reasoning. During the Enlightenment era, the science community grouped many religious ideas that were pondered upon during the prior Catholic Church reign as mere superstitions, with good reason. Unfortunately, the study of consciousness and human intuition was grouped together as religious superstitions. But after hundreds of years of the science community going back and forth concerning what is superstition and what is okay to discuss, the subject of consciousness could no longer be placed on the back burner, that is ignored, as something not real. People experiences via consciousness had need of explanation. The masses wanted to know what consciousness was, and how it worked. Thus, science decided to explain the phenomenon of conscious awareness as a byproduct of the physical brain, making consciousness a part of neuroscience. There should be no wonder why after hundreds of years, today's mainstream science do not have a clue to how the conscious works. Mainstream science. The English word science is derived from the Latin word, scientia, which means to know. The Latin word, scientia, used to be a reference to knowing all there is to know, that is everything concerning life and existence. Within the last half-century, its English translation has been restricted to knowing the observable, that is the physical. Today, the word science is defined this way: the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the natural and physical world. Science Cambridge English Dictionary. Mainstream science is the study of the structure of physical reality and how physical objects, galaxies, stars, planets, cells, atoms, protons, quarks and gluon strings, behave in a physical world. Today's world of science has nothing to do with metaphysics, the study of the interior of reality, that is the first principles of existence or being something. Arguably the greatest scientist that ever lived was Sir Isaac Newton. Scientists today downplay the fact that their hero Newton, probably the smartest scientist to have ever walked the earth, was a practicing alchemist. Alchemy is branched off of metaphysics, and is an art that is considered by the scientific community as pseudoscience, not real science. A perplexed community. It seems the more the mainstream sciences of today ignores the interior of reality, the more they become puzzled with how our external reality works. For instance, some 100 years ago, the scientific community became mesmerized and transfixed with the introduction of the reality of a quantum existence, underlining our physical world. The quantum world is a supermicroscopic physical reality that is just as real as the physical reality we see and interact with daily. But the quantum reality is too small to observe without sophisticated instruments. Someone would say, so what? There is another microscopic world out there that we can't see with the naked eye? We've seen this before with the discovery of the world of cells, germs, DNA, bacteria, etc. Yes, with mechanical eyes, we have seen and thus study microscopic worlds within our physical world, but none like the world we call quanta. The supermicroscopic world of quantum physics is tens of thousands of times smaller than the world of microbiology. And the quantum world is much stranger than you have ever imagined. The late great Danish physicist Niels Bohr, who made foundational contributions concerning atomic structure and quantum theory for which he received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1922, has said this about quantum mechanics. If quantum mechanics hasn't profoundly shocked you, you haven't understood it yet. Quantum mechanics quote, Niels Bohr, brainy quotes. What has been baffling the scientific community for the last 100 years up to present day about quantum mechanics is this: the laws in this supermicroscopic world do not obey the concrete laws found in our macroscopic world of classical mechanics, that is classical physics. In a nutshell, there are things going on in the quantum world that all of mainstream science cannot explain. And some of these things go against our logic and reasoning. Take what is termed quantum tunneling, a quantum mechanical effect where it is possible for particles, for example electrons, to cross energy barriers, even though the particle's energy is less than that of the barrier. This is impossible in classical mechanics, a mechanics where Newton's laws is fundamental. In classical mechanics, what took place with the particle and the energy barrier in the above illustration would be like a jelly bean on one side of a 6-inch thick brick wall magically appearing on the other side of that brick wall. This just cannot happen with Newton's laws, that is classical mechanics, the macroscopic universe we see and interact with daily. But quantum theory permits this. Another phenomenon that has mainstream science scratching their heads is what is termed in physics, photon entanglement. Entangled photons maintain opposite spins no matter how far apart they are, even at great distances across the universe. Yet, to interact with one instantaneously affects the entangled other. This is impossible with classical physics because Einstein's physics says all action is limited by the speed of light. Yes, even the late great Albert Einstein was stumped by this quantum world, calling photon entanglement spooky action at a distance. More to life than physicalities. Let the reader understand. The world of quantum physics is a world that is just as real, physical, as our objective reality. It is the foundation for our physical reality, but not all of reality. In fact, the quantum world mediates between the internal and external universe, as we will see with the unfolding of dementia, the whole of reality. Dangers of mainstream science. One of the dangers in believing and teaching that the world described by mainstream science, a world of only physicalities and their byproducts, is this: as the scientific community at large teaches us only one side of the coin of life, that is its external side, people may begin to ignore the actual essence of all physical life, which is internal reality in reference to the consciousness. The example is drawn from the human brain. Today's mainstream science may use brain imagery apparatuses to probe the thoughts of a person, and by doing so, receive actual neurological activity readouts from the thoughts of that person. But still, the imagery readout is only looking at the outside shell of the thing. Our thoughts definitely possess a physical, measurable, observable coronet that can be measured by scientific instruments. But these readouts are not the same as the conscious experience of actually having those thoughts. The imagery readout, and the experience, are two sides of the same coin, that is the inside and the outside of the thing. But when one teaches only on the external side and neglects the internal side, it is like removing the spirit from the body. The removal of the spirit from the body leaves a corpse. Science Doctrine Today. During one of his lectures speaking on humanity's insignificance in the universe, the world-renowned theoretical physicist Lawrence Krauss has stated, "This tells us that we're more insignificant than we ever imagined. If you take the universe, everything we see, stars, galaxies, all of physical reality, if you get rid of it, the universe is essentially the same. We, humans, constitute a 1% bit of pollution in a universe that's 30% dark matter and 70% dark energy. We are completely irrelevant." Lawrence Krauss Something from Nothing lecture. In Krauss' lack of understanding, he foolishly assumes there is no internal reality, only an external one. And the external universe has no real purpose other than to be. He continued by saying, "Why such a universe, which we are so irrelevant, would be made for us is beyond me. Our new picture of cosmology is that we live in a universe dominated by nothing. The largest energy in the universe, 70% of the energy in the universe, resides in empty space. And we don't have the slightest idea why it's there." Lawrence Krauss Something from Nothing lecture. Note, this is one of the smartest recognized theoretical physicists in the world today. Let the reader understand there is a perfect and even wonderful explanation for why the physical universe was created, even for us. This is one of the main topics we will investigate within the pages of this book. This book, Dementia, the whole of reality, brings to light every aspect of the mysteries of our existence concerning a creator, how reality functions, and life purpose for every person, by unifying the studies of science, quantum mechanics, particle physics, cosmology, information theory, theology, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, computer science, number theory, mathematics, the holographic principle, computer simulation, Religion. Ancient Egyptian mysteries. Ancient Babylon mysteries. Authentic Kabbalah. Do not be intimidated by the list above. In unifying the topics at hand, each subject will be handled with extreme simplicity, so much so, the unlearned will be able to grasp each study and concept with ease. But before we get started, let the reader understand, science is a wonderful study. But today's mainstream science tends to ignore what cannot be physically observed. For example, consciousness, which makes today's science an curtailed instrument that will cause the observer to always fall short concerning putting the pieces of the puzzle of reality together. Today's cosmology, quantum physics, and etc. ignore the internal world because these sciences today are by nature the study of the external. Metaphysics, a branch of philosophy that deals with the first principle of things, such as being, has grown obsolete, and introspection has taken an increasingly backseat role in the pursuit of knowledge in comparisons with advancements in science, especially neurology and brain science. Thus, the vast tower of multidimensional reality collapses down into a single-story dwelling where most humans fall captive to the illusion that the only reality is physical reality. Science alone cannot unmask the universe. Eric Chason, in his 1981 bestseller, Cosmic Dawn, The Origins of Matter and Life, stated this about today's science. Why is there a universe? Scientists simply don't know how to address why questions. They are out of the present formulation of modern science. Nor do we know, or have any prospect of ever knowing, why there is a universe. Cosmic Dawn, The Origins of Matter and Life. Eric Chason. A distortion occurs when we start to believe that the physical world of quantum physics with its subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, electrons, leptons, quarks, etc., is the foundation of all existence, and is more real while our internal reality is less real, or not real at all. A warp in the psyche begins to arise when we end up living in a world of what I term, empty shells, where everything has an outside, but we cannot really believe that there is anything on the inside.